even a "how are you doing?" I thank you very much. Even though I had to go through the chemotherapy, my friends, family, teachers, doctors, and even people who heard about my situation have made this experience a lot less difficult. I figured that some of you, as my classmates, who I see almost every day, would want to know what I had been going through, but didn't know how to ask. I'm very open about my adversity, and I would be more than happy to answer your questions. Thank you for listening. This is the titanium rod that's in my leg right now. I'm going to pass it around so you guys can just look at it and see it.
Does anybody have any questions for Luke?
I also invited somebody from
How has your energy been since you've gotten back?
Lately, I haven't been able to sleep very well. I've been getting anywhere between 2 to 6 hours of sleep a night. Usually it's because I have so much on my mind thinking about school and everything that I have to make up, but otherwise it's been all right.
How are you doing getting around? You doing all right?
How are you doing getting around?
It's rather difficult for me since once my leg is straightened, it'll be a lot easier to walk around. But for now, I'm getting really close to that point, but for now it's really exhausting.
When do you think you'll be able to get around without the crutches? When do they say?
I'm hoping towards the end of April, my leg will probably be straight, hopefully. And then I have to work on flexion of my knee so I can bend it and have good reflex with it. So.
How are you rehabbing your leg so you can get to that point?
A lot of very strenuous exercises, even working on an exercise bike or a treadmill. It's really hard for me to move my legs and do stuff like that, but as long as I do a lot of it, it should be straight pretty soon. So.
Is there anything that they can do to help you out?
Now that I think about it, it's a lot of it is when I come to school each day, it kind of seems like in a ways that I don't know if you guys seem a little bit too scared to talk to me or don't know how to ask me questions. So I feel like maybe an occasional, like I'm not saying every single day, but like if you guys see me in the hall, like just a greeting, like maybe hi, like just with school, it's kind of hard to come back and no one's really talking to me, acknowledging me, because something did happen to me, and like I kind of like everybody to know about it. So. I've invited somebody from the hospital. Her name is Emily Willem. She works at the Limb Preservation Foundation, and she also was a patient to osteosarcoma cancer.
So a big thank you to Luke for inviting me to be here today and talk to all of you. Like he said, I too had bone cancer. I met Luke, though, through the foundation that I work for, which is called the Limb Preservation Foundation. And it was started by Luke's surgeon, whose name's Dr. Ross Wilkins. He was the funny guy holding his head next to Luke in the picture. And he is one of the top surgeons, not only in Colorado, but in the country. He's world known for what he does. So I feel so fortunate that Luke is here and getting the care that he needs, the best care that he can here. So Dr. Wilkins started an organization called the Limb Preservation Foundation, and what we do is we provide support to patients facing limb-threatening conditions. So that's how I met Luke. But then we had a connection pretty quickly because I too had cancer. I was a bit younger than Luke. I was diagnosed with bone cancer below my knee when I was about 11. And I'll come back to that. But right now what I want to touch on is sort of what brings us here today and what is part of the mission and the drive of the foundation that I work for. We support patients who have an arm or a leg at risk from cancer, similar to Luke's situation, a traumatic injury, or infection. And we do that through patient assistance and research and education. And all three of those are equally important, but the reason we're here today is because Luke wants to educate you, his peers, to feel more knowledgeable and more comfortable talking to him about what he's going through. I'm sure most of you have had someone in your family or in your circle touched by cancer at some point in your life, whether it be a grandparent. But to have someone so young and who you see at school who is going through this, it can be intimidating to talk to them. So I think that education, and I agree with Luke 100%, that opening the communication lines and teaching you guys about it will make you more comfortable approaching him in the halls. And so I have some just basic facts about osteosarcoma, which is bone cancer. Osteo means bone, and sarcoma means cancer. So about 400 kids and teens are diagnosed every year in this country. They don't yet know what causes bone cancer. Unlike smoking or lung cancer, there's no direct cause where that, smoking is linked to it. But what they do know is that every day our body makes hundreds and thousands of cells, and we're living creatures. That's what's going on, and it happens to most of us every day. One of our cells will mutate. And the great thing is we have this incredible gene system that will come in and will just squash that cell that's trying to do something it shouldn't be. And for some reason with cancer, the gene isn't doing its job, and it lets that cell mutate, and then that cell multiplies and it becomes cancer. So that's how we know it starts there, but we don't know exactly how it starts. So we're working towards that. That's what researchers and doctors want to find out. Another interesting thing is, I'm sure you might not have seen Luke with a mask, but you sometimes see cancer patients with masks. That's not because it's contagious, that's because they're really susceptible to getting our germs, because we're carrying around all these germs that we have good immune systems, they won't affect us. But that's to keep Luke and cancer patients safe. It's not because it's contagious. So I think that's something that I assume most of you know, but it's important that you know that. And then another, what did I see? What else did I write? So like I said, there's no known cause, and treatment in the past couple decades has changed dramatically. So what used to happen in cases like Luke's is they'd find cancer in the leg, they'd have to amputate the leg to get the cancer out, and then they would just wait because they initially believed that bone cancer didn't react to chemotherapy or radiation. And today we know that's not true. So as Luke was telling you, he went through chemotherapy, and then they put that prosthesis, which I think is in the back of his room, into him to preserve his limb. And that's a big part of what is changing the face of bone cancer for pediatric and older patients, is that they're able to keep their limbs because of these internal prosthetics. So chemo and limb salvage procedure has been a huge, huge change with bone cancer in the past couple decades. Survival rates nationally now are around 80%, but here in Colorado at the Denver Clinic of Extremities at Risk, where Luke was treated, survival rates are actually at 92%. So that's 12% higher than the national average. And that's their round of applause. And 94% of patients get to keep their limbs. And the reason, why doesn't everyone in the country have that extra 12% chance? The reason is because here the Limb Preservation Foundation, in association with the Denver Clinic for Extremities at Risk and CSU, Animal Cancer Center, we fund research that makes it possible for people like Luke, for patients with bone cancer or other limb-threatening conditions, not only to save their limbs, but to save their lives. So that's why I feel so fortunate to not only work with this foundation, but that Luke was treated here, because he really got the best care possible. So those are just some more, facts you would say about the disease and about the foundation. But as I mentioned, and as Luke said, I had cancer when I was 11, or just before I turned 11. And I was going into 6th grade, so similar timing to him, missed out on the summer and didn't come back to school. When I got to middle school, unlike Luke, my cancer was diagnosed a lot later on, so I had my leg amputated above my knee, So I have a prosthesis, which is like Luke's, but it's my whole leg. It's not on the inside, it's on the outside. So I feel so fortunate that Luke was able to keep his limb. And although I lost mine, I feel so fortunate that I'm alive and that I never relapsed, which is a big thing, that the cancer never came back anywhere. And that I'm able to be here today talking to all of you. But I do remember how challenging it was going back to school. Like Luke, I was bald, I was exhausted, I had been gone for a semester and a half, and I came back, not on crutches, but in a wheelchair with one leg, and people would either stare at me, or they wouldn't act like anything happened. And it was the strangest limbo between the two, because like Luke, I didn't have cancer anymore. I was cancer-free, and that was fantastic. And all I wanted was to come back to school and things be normal again. But when I got back to school, my peers they treated me like I was still sick, and they just didn't know how to approach me. And it wasn't their fault. They just didn't know what to do. And I wish that I had the courage that Luke has today to sit everyone down and say, hey, something really extreme happened to me, but I'm healthy now, but my journey isn't over. And it'll be a lot easier if my peer group knows what I went through and feels empowered to talk to me about it. So I'm just here to reiterate what Luke is saying and let you know that it's okay to talk to him. You don't have to only talk to him about cancer either, just like what he said, to say hi to him, to ask him about, have you heard of this band? I don't know, whatever you guys are talking about in your sophomore year. But just to know that it is okay to talk about it if you want to, ask him questions. That for me was one of the biggest things. I remember the very first time someone acknowledged that I had had cancer in my own age. They asked me, what are you going to do with your right shoe? Because I only had a left foot. And I didn't know how to answer that at the time, but now today you see me standing. I am wearing 2 shoes, and people ask me those questions got me to a point where I'm comfortable talking about it. I acknowledge that it happened to me, but you guys are a huge part of Luke's recovery process also. And having your support and your openness and open communication lines, I think, is really important. So I just want to say another big thank you to Luke and to all of you. And this seems like a truly incredible place to go to school and a great community to be a part of. And I know that all of you are going to make his journey a really wonderful one back to recovery and health. So thank you.
Any questions?
Do y'all have any questions for me, or maybe if you thought of one for Luke? I'm not very shy either, so you can ask me just about anything. If not, that's fine too.
Do you want to go ahead and introduce us?
Oh, yeah.
In high school, did you participate in any sports?
I didn't get into sports in high school, but recently, because I thought I couldn't. I just thought I wasn't going to be able to. And as of 3 years ago, I learned how to ride a bike again, which is something I couldn't do. I learned how to ride a motorcycle, which is something you all shouldn't do. I rock climb, I do yoga, so it took me a long time, but that had more to do with I felt really uncomfortable in my body, which I'm sure everyone feels that way at some point. But I've recently gotten to a point where, I do lots of sports. I love it. Yeah. Yeah, actually, I couldn't drive past Taco Bell for like 4 or 5 years because just seeing Taco Bell would make me throw up. So yeah, your food preferences, nothing tastes good, and you have crazy cravings, and they stay with you for a while. I do eat Taco Bell now. Their new breakfast tacos, delicious. Yeah. I think that is a fear, and Luke can speak to that. He's definitely closer to it than I am. It's something, you go through checkups. At first it's every 3 months for a few years, then it's every 6 months, and then it's every year. And I think that might be one of the hardest parts, is going back there and wondering, am I going to have it again? I thought it was something I didn't think about until I started working with cancer patients again. And now that it's more in my mind, it is something that scares you. But it also, and it empowers you to take better care of yourself and be better to your body, because you got to treat yourself well. Yeah.
Side effects of chemotherapy.
What was that? Oh, the side effects of chemotherapy. So you lose your hair, you're nauseous. For me, I had, a canker sore. My entire mouth and throat was coated in those, so I couldn't eat. What other side effects can you think of, Luke? Your insomnia, exhaustion. Your immune system is totally suppressed. So if you're not at the hospital for chemo, you're at the hospital because you have a common cold, but you're not going through something common. So it really just wipes you off your feet. So those are a few of the many. Yeah.
How was learning to drive with your prosthetic?
So learning to drive was an experience because it was my right leg. I can't really, since I don't have my foot, I can't push. So I had to just cross. Well, they told me that I had to have a handy, drive with your hands, and I was not going to have that, So I put my left leg over, and I haven't known any other way, so it was pretty easy. Right. Fantastic. Well, I think I'll pass this over to Luke. Thanks again, guys.
Two of my really good friends offered to talk about how it was with me being in this condition and going through this experience, and I'd like to have Matt Kane and Shawn Hobart talk for a little bit.
Hey everybody, I'm Shawn Hobart. I'm absolutely certain you all know that, so I'm going to try my best, not for me to cry too much or to take up too much of your time. Before this happened, life was normal. Everything was good. We knew that Luke's leg hurt for a long time, and we couldn't really explain why. But after this, things changed. Luke, I didn't see him pretty much ever. I'm really emotional. But we were there. It was a good time. I went with him to 2 chemo treatments. I went to 2 of his treatments. Afterward, it was tough. The first time, he was crying too because he was too terribly nauseous. And nausea, I know, I can vouch, is a thing that will really, really screw you up. But I think, for the most part, that it's just, when going through this, you really need people by you. And people that are there to support you. Because there were times, for weeks, that I couldn't talk to anyone. And I would just sit alone, sulking. Can't even pronounce things. Sulking. And it's life-changing. You hear of grandparents, 65, 70, getting diagnosed with cancer. But when it's your best friend from kindergarten, and he's 16, it's something that leaves a mark that can't be erased. I have to say that it was nice before Luke got the surgery, before he got the titanium rod in his knee, that we did go out and find a new Chinese place to get food, where we still enjoy going to today. But it was just really enjoyable to have one real good moment before he turned into, no offense, a shambling mess. And I assure you, I was a shambling mess too. But it was something that it should be learned in life, that how fragile and tangible a human spirit can be. Because after all the millions of other things that were wrong that I'm not going to go into, because this isn't about me, this is about Luke, it's hard to keep going with everything. And there were a couple times that I just wanted to give up, but I knew that that wasn't what my friends and mostly what Luke wouldn't have wanted me to do. He would have wanted me to stay there with them and to keep going. And since that's what I stuck with, I have to say it's one of the most rewarding paths one can take. Because I can say that I lived next to Luke, not during it, not taking part of his responsibilities, which I assure you I wish I could have taken some of his chemo treatments for him. But I have to say that it felt good to be beside him and to know that I was always there by his side. Because that's what someone really needs in a time like this. Other than that, I'd say, I'm not trying to beat a horse to death that's already dead, but Luke isn't a scary guy. His t-shirts very well may be, but he is not. He is one of the most kind-hearted, laughable, and funny people you will meet, and carefree, and will treat you as you treat him. And he will be the most appreciative just for talking to say hello in the hall, or even having a nice conversation about what you had for dinner last week. But it's life-changing, not only going through this, but continuing with what was happening already. And I have to say that this has been probably the most memorable year of my life, and will be until I die, most likely.
All right, thanks, Shawn. I'd like to have Matt Kane talk for a little bit.
Hi guys, I'm Matt. They asked me to come up here and talk to you guys for the remaining 4 minutes about what it was like going through this with Luke. I know it was a terrible experience for him. I mean, just to be kind of go for a routine doctor's appointment and then turn out that you have cancer. I mean, it's life-changing stuff. It's really terrible. So a lot of Luke's friends, including me, got together and we decided, well, we should do something good for Luke. We should try and help him through this hard time. I know that term's stressed a lot because it is. It really is. It's a really hard time to go through, especially if you're 16 and without being too sappy or anything. It's emotional. It's a really, really hard time to go through for a kid like that. Not that you're a kid, but so we decided we'd make a giant poster for Luke. It's not, of course, not compensation for having cancer, but it's something. It's some kind of message to say like, hey, we're still here, we're your friends, we're gonna help you. And that's what we tried to do. So we got a giant get well soon poster for Luke, and me and a couple of my friends, Kate, Peter, and we got together and we went right outside the auditorium, or right outside the cafeteria, and we had a bunch of signatures, and we told people to sign this, sorry. And people would come up and say, oh, hey, cool, who's Luke? Yeah, he's on the poster. And, well, Luke Utel is this guy with cancer. He was diagnosed late June last year, and it was kind of surprising to us just sitting there to find out that, like, not many people, especially in our grade, surprisingly enough, knew about Luke and about what he's going through. And to sum it up, it's a terrible experience, and say hello and be nice to him. I don't know, but it's terrible, so we're here for you, Luke.
Thank you guys so much for being here and being such a polite audience. Mrs. Skelton and Mrs. Racine have some bracelets here that we happen to have showing support for people with cancer. Take one on your way out if you want one. Thanks, you guys. We have had, unfortunately, so many students with cancer that when we came in here, they said we have a bunch